Good morning, everybody. This is Stephen Pugh of the Home Bible College. It's May the 13th today, and we're looking at 1 Chronicles and chapter 7. And we're continuing with the record of the genealogies of Israel. In chapter 7, we have the genealogy of Issachar. In passages like this, there isn't anything necessarily that significant. I mean, if we look at the genealogy of Issachar, for sure, it talks about how many valiant men there were, how many men of war there were, how many people were in the nation. And of course, when it's recording the numbers of the people, it's recording the men, because it's recording the heads of families. Even until recent years, when there is a census, they record what's called the head, and the head is the father of the home. So when they're recording these numbers, they're recording the fathers of families. And then from verse 6 we have the genealogy of Benjamin. Again, there's not that much significant in it. Of course, if you were a member of the tribe of Benjamin, then you would find this of huge significance. It's something that you'd read a lot and you'd refer to it a lot. So this is not a story to be read, but this is a reference book. It's a reference book for the family tree of those that are in the Old Covenant. And it talks about the mighty men of valor, 20,200, and then later it talks about all these are the sons of Jediel by the heads of their fathers, mighty men of valor, 17,200 soldiers fit to go for war and to battle. And so this is an important thing, when God is giving us the record of the numbers of the children of Israel. He talks about those that are of the cutting edge. He talks about those that are fit for battle, fit for war. Often we hear people talk about our churches today, and they'd say, oh, we got 200 or they got 400 or whatever. But we don't number all the little children, and we don't number all the very old people. In Israel, they would number those fit for battle. They wouldn't expect a person to go to battle until they were about 30, and long after they've had their wife and family growing up. And they wouldn't expect them to go to war after the age of about 50. And so these numbers, 17,200, it's speaking about those who are warriors. It's not talking about the very young. It's not talking about the very old. It's talking about those that are the cutting edge of its political power. Then we have the genealogy of Naphtali. It's really interesting that the genealogy of Naphtali is very brief. It could be that the chronicler, as he's recording this, he puts down these are the sons of Naphtali. He might have done it from memory, thinking that he might return to that passage and fill out some of the detail later. But of course, nothing's mentioned about the men of war, and it's just left as a very short sentence. Then we have, from verse 14, we have the sons of Manasseh. Again, it's not a great deal that's said. And then we have the genealogy of Ephraim, verse 20. It's very interesting that a little point is put in by the scribe here. He says in verse 21, he says, the men of Gath that were born in that land slew. So these are the children, these were all the heads of families that were killed by the men of Gath. And Ephraim their father mourned many days, and his brethren came to comfort him. And when he went in to his wife, she conceived and bare a son, and he called his name Beriah, because it went evil with his house. You see, not only could these tribes, these families grow, but they could have the disaster of all the men being wiped out. And if the heads of families were wiped out, then very often they left no offspring. And if they left no offspring, then the inheritance of Israel came to an abrupt end. Often with family trees we see a situation in which if parents don't have children, then suddenly the family tree stops. And we see this in the life of in the life of Adam and Eve. You see now, Adam and Eve, they had two sons. There was Cain and there was Abel. Now Abel was killed by his brother, and that ended his family there and then. And then we have from verse 30 the life of Asher. Okay, and it talks about them that were apt to the war and to battle, 26,000 men. See how the numbering is about those that were soldiers in the army. That's what the point was. In chapter 8 we have the genealogy of Benjamin. It's very interesting that the genealogy of Benjamin is in great detail, and of course it comes right the way down to Kish, who begat Saul, and Saul who begat Jonathan, and so on. It's a very, very interesting tribe. They had a very significant position amongst the children of Israel. In chapter 9, all Israel were reckoned by genealogies, and behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah, who were carried away to Babylon for their transgression. Now, we know that the kings of Israel were carried away to Assyria, but the kings of Judah were carried away to Babylon. But in this particular passage we have a description of the first inhabitants of the land. You see, previously in the Chronicles we've had the family tree, but now from chapter 9 we have the family tree and how it relates to where they lived. That's the particular point of chapter 9. And then at verse 35 we see that in Gibeon dwelt the father of Gibeon, and so on, and it comes right the way down to Kish, who begat Saul, and Saul who begat Jonathan. And so these passages, there's no great password for today. It's really a story about people. And faced with huge numbers of people, it's very easy for us all to think that we're insignificant and that we mean nothing. But of course, every single human being in these tribes was a human being. They all had a story. They all had a life to live. They all had a law to keep. They all had righteousness to uphold. And God brought every single one of them to him that they might be accountable to him. And that's the lesson of today. The lesson of today is, though we may be many in number, yet God has his hand upon every single life, and every single one of us has a life before God. Well, God bless you. Great to speak to you. Look forward to speaking to you again tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Bye for now.